Hello everyone, Rev619 here, how the devil are you? Today we're going to be talking about Cassia, one of the best win conditions in the game, and she's something that even a bad, poorly optimized build, think about the worst build you have ever seen, is still going to be overpowered with her. So she's a very brain dead to build characters. Just take everything and she's great. However, I'm going to give you what, for my playstyle, is the most optimal route and how to truly get some extra mileage out of her. Her gear, very easy to change around. There's only a few things that I would say is actually quite key to her, which is Commander's Monocle, which is extra damage based on her fellowship. You can boost her fellowship up more with the Mercy's Gift. The Thrice Pioneer's Bracers, they can put on a lot of debuffs to the enemy, so it's quite useful. Getting the Signet Ring of the Inquisition can guarantee your heroic action, which is very, very, very good. You can use either the Daemon Tool or the Medal of Alacrity. Daemon Tool will allow her Warp Gaze to pretty much set everything on fire, as well as stun things, so it is really, really good, and it really helps set up your Pyromancy and some of your execution abilities. You can also use Medal of Alacrity, so bring it down does more. Grimoire of the Void will actually increase her warp damage, and it will increase Psychic Phenomena, so if you're using allies that rely on Warp Conductors, Gauntlets, or even the Psycho's Breastplate, it's more likely to trigger that. You can use the Adrenaline War Boots for 20% dodge, or the Expeditionary Footwear, which gives you 15 dodge per Navigator power. So again, that's really good. And the Slick Body Glove, basically, it gives her dodge based on her perception. Like, it's pretty good. It's a 20% buff there. She uses Perception for dodge. She's got Warlord's Amulet from allies, so her dodge is really, really high, and her armor itself is pretty good. You want her to really have an infusing staff, so when she's buffing allies, she increases their stats. And a devastating staff is basically you can use more damage to your direct damaging stuff, as well as some of your warp powers, and you can sometimes use them twice. And this one particularly, it reduces the first AP by 1. So for 3 AP, you can essentially use her Warp Gaze ability twice, along with some of the other ones. I also take Grenadier on her, so she can use stuff like Tears of Repentance to throw out some debuffs and stuff. Iron Eye Grenade, also very good for armor stripping. You can throw on another grenade. I've just got a Crack Grenade on there because I was using them a lot, but I normally just put on a random damage one. So there are other ones you can use, like the Mines Scrambler's pretty good. You've got the Haywire Grenades are also pretty good. It's just whatever you have access to and what you really want to go into that slot. Also, Stims are also very good on her because it's just useful to get those extra attack actions, especially for boss encounters. Like I said, there are things that you can do and change with this, but we're now going to go into the build, and like I said, this is designed for my style of play. Anything you want to change, feel free to do it, but this will be very helpful for you to understand how to play the character, how to build a character, and have sort of a skeleton going into it. And hopefully I'm not going to be giving you any misinformation that will hurt you in your later build stuff. But feel free to comment on anything as we go through it. I will endeavour to answer everything. So we're going to do, as always, early game build, mid game build, and then end game build. And I'll link the spreadsheet so you can look at what gear I've recommended and some of the options. Alright, let's go. So, let's head on over into the archetype. So, Cassia starts as an officer. She's already got up to bring it down. She's got Finest Hour, and she comes with Inspiring Courage, which is whenever the officer targets an ally with an ability for the first time round, the ally gets 13 temporary wounds. So, this is actually very useful for your Deathworld characters. Deathworld, best origin in my opinion, but let's go into her unique stuff because she's a navigator. So, as a navigator, pretty much her health, her damage, and a lot of other things all scale from willpower, so it is the most important stat. One of the first things I take with her for her combat talent is Mastery of Time. Whenever an ally in combat gains next turn, the Navigator gains a +5 stacking bonus willpower to the end of combat, up to 25. It's very, very useful. So the first one I take is Last Impression, because you will get a lot of mileage out of this. Half the bonus granted by Voice of Command remains until the end of combat. This bonus does not stack for itself and the bonus granted by Voice of Command, but does count as an ability effect for the purpose of other talent effects. Yeah, no, lasting impression, especially in the early game, will really help because you're not going to be winning in a single turn. So this is just one of those things that is really nice to get very, very early. I did also sometimes take no respite because whenever the officer ability grants an action point to an ally, that ally gains 1 to characteristics for every action point gained till the end of combat. But that's sort of like a +3. Where in the first round, whereas last impression will always give you that half a voice command. So depending on which you want to go with, you can also take no respite, but I recommend lasting impression. More willpower. First ability, reveal the light. This is her strongest ability, and they had to nerf it so she couldn't target herself, which is the target ally gains plus 36 willpower and toughness until the end of combat. It's actually 10 plus 2 times Navigator's willpower bonus, so if you use Prescience on her to buff her willpower, this will do more. But yes, very, 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 very good. Eyes of Oblivion. Every enemy in the Navigator's line of sight has their dodge and hit chance reduced by 12. That's actually the Navigator's perception bonus, so buffs to her perception will do that. So perception is our second key stat, because we also use that to dodge. We then take Ebb and Flow. Every even turn, second, fourth, the Navigator gains an additional action point. Every odd turn, the first turn, the Navigator gains 20 perception. So, stacking willpower and perception here, this lady is strong. We go into awareness because we can use awareness for some other stuff, but it's good to spot those bombs so you don't get injuries, especially on unfair Grimdark. The best upgrade finest hour is, of course, number 4, which is during X turns, all non-attacking abilities cost 1 AP less. 0 AP buffs. You loop this with Bounty Hunter, you have infinite stacking 0 AP abilities. It is really good. Really, really good. More awareness, we then get perception, we then go into blood augury. What this does is enemies damaged by Navigator's power suffer 17% additional damage, which is 5 plus Navigator's perception bonus from any source of warp damage. So this will be to herself and other people using warp damage like your Pyromancer and your Warp Fire. The bonus damage stacks for each hit inflicted by the Navigator. This stacks up to 5 times. Yeah, this will make your Warp Fires do more. It's good. Perception. We then take Waking Nightmare. This is a stepping stone ability that we need to take. All enemies within the area suffer minus 36 penalties to their willpower and toughness until the end of combat. It's 10 plus 2 times Navigator's willpower bonus. That's very good. It debuffs people a lot. And there's other abilities to stack up more. We then take Strange Vitality. The Navigator heals 13 wounds at the beginning of every turn and gains plus 1 additional wound for every Navigator talent taken. The heal increases by plus 1 for every creature killed between the Navigator's turns. Yeah, this basically keeps her alive. It's her willpower bonus, basically. It's good. It's very good. Undamned Seam Souls. While under the effect of any Navigator power, enemies have their armor reduced by 24. The reduction is increased by the devastating parameter of the Navigator's staff, but does not stack. So 5 plus Navigator's willpower bonus. Yeah, this is very good. Waking Nightmare on that. You lower their willpower and toughness, but then you also lower their armor. It's very good. It helps with a lot of bosses. We then go into Persuasion. Persuasion is a very good ability. There are some items that stack with Persuasion. I won't give spoilers, but yes, very useful. We then take Fellowship here because we can't take Intelligence. We don't really need to invest in Fellowship because there are Navigator powers that stack our Fellowship. But yeah, it's good. Grenadier. So the reason we take this before Aurora is so the first grenade used in combat does not spend AP and does not count towards the attack limit of turn. This just means she does more. It is such a good tank because with her mid-game class, you're always going to be going first. This gets so much more mileage out of her opening turn. It is unbelievable. There's no character more perfect for Grenadier than Cassia. Lastly, we take Finest Upgrade 1, Finest Hour Upgrade 1. The target Finest Hour gains additional bonuses. During their next turn, the target deals 21% more damage. Until the end of combat, the target gains the effective Voice of Command. Big buffs. 3-time Officer's Fellowship bonus. Yeah, we do buff that up. But this is sort of going to be your early game. Your idea that you're going to be going into here is you're going to be using Voice of Command on your ally. You're then going to use Reveal the Light. You're going to throw out a grenade to damage some enemies, and then you're going to bring it down to an ally to give them some extra AP. If you need to do more, sometimes you also have enough AP for Waking Nightmare. As you get more AP later at the start of the game, you tend not to, so you only have 4. But yeah, the bring it down will then give them 2 AP, no MP until we get some abilities later, and the ally also gains 2 times the officer's fellowship bonus momentum, so it's a very good ability. Later on it will do a lot more than this. Sometimes when you damage, you will use the navigator's unique attack, which is what it does with warp power bonus. You get Daemon Tool in Act 1, so you can really juice that up as well. So it's going to be deciding what's more beneficial, a big AoE or giving turns pass to allies. But this is going to cover the early game, and already she is going to be that one party member that is always in the squad. She does not warm the bench. Cassia, MVP. So let's move into the mid game. Grand Strategist is the only good option for her. The reason for this is you want your buffer to go first. You only have 1 Master's Chrono, so you either want to give that to Jay, because she's going to be a Master Tactician, or you're going to want to give it to Idra as a Bounty Hunter to do infinite buffer loops. Grand Strategist only has a few things that you really want from the actual class itself, and combined with your Navigator powers, it is so perfect for Cassia, and we'll start talking about this. So, when you first go into Grand Strategist, you get something called Combat Tactics. The Grand Strategist, basically, you get a frontline, backline, and rear line. Frontline can increase allies' armor and the damages enemy takes. You've got the backline, which I believe is the one that buffs your range damage, and then the rear is the one that buffs your cover bonus, your dodge, and your dodge reduction. What you can do is you can use stratagem abilities to buff them, but actually taking those abilities, waste. But there's a way that we can still use them, and I'll get into that. So, like I said, taking any of these stratagems, it feels like a waste. It really does. But there's a little bit of RNG that we can add to that we'll get into later. But the first thing we take is Zone of Fear. All creatures in the zone must pass a willpower resistance test or immediately move out of the zone, even if they are stunned or immobilized. This movement triggers attacks or opportunities from the Navigator's allies that have passed resistance test or are outside the zone. So this is pretty useful. But the first talent we're going to take is Improvised Strategy. At the start of combat, the Grand Strategist gains 1 random unknown stratagem and can use it until the end of combat for 0 AP. Some of these are really good, some of them aren't too bad. So Blitz Stratagem can allow your allies to run to another stratagem. Combat Locus Stratagem can basically double all the bonuses that stratagem provides. There is an item, so it's 4 times, but we don't need that. Trench Line, all allies in that area get more cover efficiency. Stronghold gives them more armor and deflection. Overwhelming is it basically creatures suffer ballistic skill issues, rate of fire issues, and weapon skill issues, and melee creatures have their melee reduced, so it's very good to go in for it. And Kill Zone Stratagem, the Grand Strategist chooses one of the combat tactics area for 1 round. All enemies that are in the area force to reroll successful dodge and parries. So Improvised Strategy is a little bit of RNG that actually makes this class exciting, and I had taken that in Exemplar, but I've reworked the build to get that straight away. It's so good. You want to use this as much as possible. It makes the build so much more fun. Taken Hold is the ability of Grand Strategist. I don't think I've ever used this. The Grand Strategist chooses a combat tactics area. Every ally inside that area gains an extra turn with 1 AP and 2 MP at the start of the Grand Strategist's next turn. Yeah, for every enemy that was killed in the selected combat tactics area, the AP is increased by plus. Yeah, I've never gone to a turn 2 when you set up right. It's only early game you turn 2, so I've never used that one. It's her heroic action is the MVP. You would never use that over this. We then get AP. We want to get more willpower. It's the juiciest stat. We then take Pass Unscathed. If the Navigator's perception is higher than their agility, their dodge is calculated using perception. Very important. Very important. Willpower. We then take Point of Curiosity, one of the best abilities, and it really enables a lot of your damage. All enemies in a 6 cell radius around the target point must pass a willpower resistant test or immediately move 3 cells towards that point. The targets move even if they are stunned or immobilized. Gather up enemies, kill enemies. Good, more win. Ugh! Get online, Cassia. Awareness. Yep, awareness we want. Good. Unnatural Law. The Navigator gains 5 fellowship and an additional 1 fellowship for every Navigator talent or Navigator power taken. This is why you don't need to invest into Fellowship, because it will just naturally increase as you level up anyway, so you can go into Intelligence, so you've got all the mental stats covered. We then take more Perception. We get Perilous Ways. Enemies moved by the Navigator's power suffer 7 damage, so that's actually 1 plus a willpower bonus divided by 2, and at the end of movement, this damage is increased by +1 for every cell they move. It just throws on a little bit of extra damage, and I believe it's warp damage, so that means that you can set people on fire with your aiming tool. Guide of Souls. The Navigator starts all turns, including extra turns, with +3 additional movement points. The first ally targeted by the Navigator with a single target ability each turn gains the same amount of additional movement points at the start of their turn. So this means if you use Reveal the Light and then bring it down, they still get a little bit of extra movement. So it's actually really, really, really good. Perception, Awareness. We then take Taking a Hold 2 upgrade. Again, I'm never going to use it, so whatever you want. Mind over Matter. The Navigator makes all resistance tests with their willpower if it is higher base characteristics for such tests. The Navigator's willpower is higher than their toughness. The Navigator's wounds are calculated according to their willpower. I go into Intelligence. You can do Fellowship, but your Fellowship's naturally going to increase, so I use Intelligence because I like to get some Warp's knowledge with her. More Intelligence, some more Law Warp. Again, you could go into Persuasion if you wanted to. If that's maxed out, then yeah, you can go into one of the laws. Mend Reality, very useful. The Navigator decreases Veil Degradation by willpower bonus. All allies gain willpower bonus deflection against all warp damage and damage from psychic powers until the end of the Navigator's turn. Yeah, very good, very good. Characteristic training willpower. I take this because I want more willpower, and we're starting to run out of skills that we can use. Like, you can take Veil of Protection if you want. Allies that are targeted by Navigator's power gain 10 armor, but this additional armor is reduced by the amount of Veil degradation. I use heavy Psyker parties, so it's useless to me. If you don't, you can take Veil of Protection. The Course of Travel. When the Navigator uses Navigator power that has not been used this combat, the Navigator gains +2 Perception until the end of combat. More Law Warp, more Intelligence. Stable Roots. Whenever the Navigator uses Navigator power, Veil Degradation is reduced by -1. Because she goes first, you don't get that much mileage out of this unless you're giving her extra turns, which you can do. If you get to your second officer and you find Veil Degradation is really high, you can actually swap to her, use Mend Reality, use some other abilities, and you can lower that degradation. We then take Tonicity. Navigator powers deal +1 damage for every 5 bonus characteristics of the Navigator's currently equipped staff. Yeah, all of them count for that. So it's as you get better staff, so the reason we take the Slayers, it boosts them. Taken Hold 3. All allies in the selected area also gain 20% dodge reduction and arm penetration. Again, not really going to use it. So the mid game is where you do a lot more buffing. You gather up enemies with Point of Curiosity. You can then buff up your allies, and if you can then set up zones, and then use your random stratagem. And you actually, because of the random stratagem, you work your tactics for that encounter based on that. So that means that every time you do an encounter, it is going to be slightly different to last time. You're not just going to be brain dead auto repeating, because you got to take into consideration which random stratagem you have, and you can just build your strategy for that. It is a lot of fun to play it this way. I honestly highly recommend it. Don't knock till you try it. Most people say, "Oh, I use grand strategy, so I have used a stratagem." I was like, now you have a reason. Now you have a reason. Anyway, that's the mid game. So let's talk about Cassia's endgame. So, the first thing I take is Firebrand. You get it basically, if an extra turn given by the character's abilities or talents grants MP, the target gains +4 additional MP. If the AP, the target gets +1 additional AP. Big upgrade to bring it down, basically. Steel Resolve, the officer's resolve increases by +3, useful to have more resolve. We take Awareness, we then get Threat and Faults. Whenever the enemy fails a resistance test against Navigator power, attacks against them gain 44% critical hit chance. This stack effect it stacks, but it's reset when they do get critical hits. So if you do open with an attack or one of your debuffs, then you're probably guaranteeing a crit from your ally in the next attack. Willpower, Under My Protection. Allies that are targeted by the Navigator's abilities get +5 to all resistance tests against warp effects, psychic powers, navigator powers, etc. until the end of combat. This ability stacks with every ability applied. Pretty good. I take Warp Curse Unleashed. I have put that there are other abilities that you can take here. The reason I take this one is all incoming warp damage is increased by 36%, and all other types of damage is increased by 18%. Those are basically 10 plus 2 times Navigator's willpower bonus, or 5 plus Navigator's willpower bonus. More willpower, more damage done to enemies. Very good for boss killing. Awareness. I then take Eager for Battle. During the first turn of combat, the character has +2 action points. Very useful for this. You're buff heavy, you're action point heavy. Open to the Warp. Enemies affected by the Navigator's power suffer a stacking -10 penalty to the next resistant test from Navigator powers. So if you set it up right, you can use this to basically guarantee that you land your ability. So if you use Warp Curse Unleashed, then Point of Curiosity, you're always going to probably move them. More willpower. Then we take Be Vigilant. Allies under the effect of the officer's abilities gain bonus to their weapons skill equal to 10 and deal +7 more damage on attacks of opportunity or something next turn. I use melee heavy party, so I take this one first. If you use ranged heavy pies, take focus first. Immolate the Soul. I take an attack ability here. There are other options. I will put that in the spreadsheet. But basically, you deal a beam of warp damage and then you do Soul Burn. Target suffers damage at the start of their turn. It also sets them on fire. So, yeah, it's pretty good. We then take some perception increases. Adjust frontline. If there are more enemies than allies in the frontline area, all allies in that area get 9% to parry and dodge. If there are more allies than enemies in the frontline area, all allies deal 9% more damage. That is by 3 plus Grand Strategist's intelligence bonus plus fellowship bonus. So you kind of need both. So you see why we were upgrading intelligence and we take the fellowship boost. I take It Will Not Die here. You can also take Swift Movements. It increases the wounds by half the character's level, whichever you prefer. Persuasion. We then take Eager Subordinates. When allies take actions on extra turns given by the character, they deal 15% more damage. Good. More AP. Commanding Voice. The range of officer abilities is increased by +3. The range of voice command is increased by +6. So, yeah, your positioning gets a little bit easier. There are other things that you could take here. You could take Armor of Contempt. You could also take Blood of Martyrs, or even Heroism. It really depends what you want. This is where it sort of opens up. Iron Discipline is also another option. You could take Lead by Example, but that one won't get much mileage till later. I don't think Leader's Assault is good. Physical Encouragement can be useful, but they need to start next to you at the start, so I wouldn't really recommend that one. We then get more Persuasion. We then take Focus. When the officer uses an ability on an ally, that ally gains bonus to their Perception and Ballistic skill equal to 5. That's actually Officer's Resolve -2. We increase our Resolve for that reason. We then take Persuasion. Strategic Offense. Every enemy killed in the frontline area increases all bonuses of combat tactic areas by +1 until the end of combat. More tactics, more good. Perception upgrades, intelligent upgrade, more law warp. Combat meditation, very, very, very useful. The character gains +15 willpower as long as they have no ranged weapons equipped. Staffs do not count as ranged. So, yeah, that's really good for melee psychers. It's also really good for our navigator. Decisive Response. Whenever the officer uses voice command or bring it down for the first time in combat, that ability costs -1 AP less. Good. More buffs. Support Zone. Using a stratagem on a combat tactics area allows the Grand Strategist to use all officer abilities on allies in that area regardless of distance. More easy placing abilities. Take some Law Warp. Personal Oversight. Whenever the officer targets an ally with an action or an ability or an attack, the ally's resolve is increased by +1 until the end of the officer's next turn. This effect stacks and is prolonged until the end of the officer's next turn. Yeah, this helps. This really helps get us enough resolve turn 1 to go straight into the heroic action. We then get characteristic training Perception. You can obviously, It Will Not Die, Grenadier, Swift Movement. There are other options that you can take at this point. We then take Air of Authority. The officer increases an ally's resolve by +5 until the end of combat. That's 2 plus officers resolve divided by 3. If the target is under the effect of voice command, they will start their next turn with +1 action point. This helps get us more from Bring It Down. Very useful. Intelligence, we then take Malign Influence. Whenever an enemy fails a willpower resistance test against the character, they suffer 16 direct damage. This is 3 plus characters willpower bonus. This helps your point of curiosity and damages and stuff. We then take Inspiring Speech. Air of Authority immediately grants momentum equal to the target's resolved. Very useful. We then get the AP increase, and that's it. That's the build done. Yeah. This is what enables you to win. You always go first, you set up, you win. This is how you one-turn every encounter, even on unfair Grimdark. There is no reason not to have her in your party. She is so good. So that brings us back full circle nicely. Yeah, Cassia is a very good character. And she is going to enable you to pretty much win the game by her alone. Her damage is decent. Her buffs are amazing. The fact that you go first and all of her stratagems and everything, she is just so good. Obviously, she's starting with 12 resolve. Has high dodge, fairly decent armor, good buffs, adds her persuasion. So one of the reasons we put persuasion up so much is obviously because of the Inquisitor's tenant ability, which it gives us momentum, it gives us temporary wounds, armor, and deflection from her persuasion. So you can juice it up more if you want. I just like to have some Lore Warp for the checks. But yeah, you bring her in your party, you follow my build, chances are you're going to win. Playing on unfair, you might need to use a little strategies like, say, some of my other builds, some of the combos that I've shown you, like the Bounty Hunter loops. But, yeah. Happy winning, everyone. That's Cassia for you. Till then, Revan out. Bye.